In the early years, after former Qin destroyed the Dai state, Emperor Fu Jian of former Qin showed mercy and allowed the 6-year-old Tuoba Gui, the legitimate grandson of Tuoba Shijian, the last ruler of Dai, to remain in his homeland. Fu Jian intended for Tuoba Gui to become the leader of the Dai people when he grew up. 10 years later, on February 20, 386, at the age of 15, Tuoba Gui declared the restoration of the Dai state with the support of the old tribal aristocracy, assuming the title of King of Dai. 2 months later, under the strategic advice of Han Chinese advisor Yan Feng, he changed his title to King of Wei, signaling his ambition to eventually take control of central China. At this time, Tuoba Gui was in a weak position and had no choice but to restrain his ambitions and submit to Murong Chui, the emperor of Later Yan, the dominant power in central China. With the support of Later Yan, Tuoba Gui quickly eliminated the old aristocratic forces within his domain that opposed Sinicization reforms. He advanced the Tuoba Xianbei regime from a nomadic tribal alliance into a feudal society. Externally, he defeated neighboring, more primitive nomadic tribes, establishing himself as a minor hegemon to the north of Later Yan. In August 388, Tuoba Gui sent his cousin Tuoba I as his representative to visit Murong Chui in the Yan capital of Zhongshan. When Murong Chui received Tuoba I, he questioned, "Why did the king of Wei not come himself?" Tuoba I replied, "In the past, our late king Tuoba Ilu was granted the title of King of Dai by the Emperor of Jin and served alongside your ancestors in the same court, as brothers. Now I am here as an envoy under orders, and I have shown no disrespect." Murong Chui retorted, "I command a strong army and hold sway over the realm. How can you claim there is no disrespect when your lord dares not come before me?" Tuoba I shook his head and replied, "If the kingdom of Yan relies solely on military might without cultivating virtue and wisdom to dominate the world, that is a matter for our generals to address. It is not my place as an envoy to speak further on this." Tuoba Yi's response was well-reasoned, composed, and neither servile nor arrogant. Though Murong Chui did not pursue the matter further, he was inwardly displeased. Tuoba I returned and reported to Tuoba Gui, "The Yan Emperor Murong Chui is old, and the Crown Prince Murong Bao is weak and ineffectual. Once Murong Chui passes, internal turmoil will inevitably break out in Yan. When that time comes, the world will naturally be ours. For now, it is not the right time to act." Tuoba Gui was very pleased with this assessment and began secretly building up his strength, waiting for the opportune moment. In July 391, Tuoba Gui's attendant, Tuoba Gu, was sent on a mission to the Yan state but was forcibly detained by Murong Chui's subordinates, who demanded that Northern Wei offer fine horses as tribute. Furious, Tuoba Gui refused to comply, severing diplomatic ties with Later Yan. 2 years later, when the Later Yan army attacked western Yan, Tuoba Gui planned to send troops to assist Murong Yong. In 394, Murong Chui destroyed the western Yan regime, clearing obstacles for his son Murong Bao to establish stable rule over Later Yan in the future. However, he was deeply angered by Northern Wei Emperor Tuoba Gui's attempt to aid Murong Yong of western Yan, disregarding the years of friendly alliance between Yan and Wei. Murong Chui also grew increasingly concerned that after his own death, the ambitious Tuoba Gui would pose a significant threat to Murong Bao. At this time, Later Yan was at the height of its power and military strength. Murong Chui sought to use force to conquer Northern Wei. He decided to take this opportunity to appoint Crown Prince Murong Bao as commander, allowing him to lead the army to victory and establish his authority. However, Murong Chui's close advisor, Shi Gaohu, advised him against this plan, saying, "Northern Wei and our Yan state have been bound by marriage alliances for generations. How can we suddenly mobilize troops to attack them? Moreover, Tuoba Gui is calm, courageous, and highly strategic. He has endured many hardships since childhood and now commands a strong army. He should not be underestimated. Although Crown Prince Murong Bao is indeed young, vigorous, and decisive, granting him full command to attack Northern Wei will likely lead him to underestimate them. If the outcome does not meet our expectations, it will damage the Crown Prince's prestige and ruin this critical endeavor. Your Majesty, please reconsider this matter carefully." Murong Chui, angered by this advice, immediately dismissed Shirgahu from his position. In May 395, Murong Chui dispatched 3 of his sons, Murong Bao, Murong Nong, and Murong Lin, at the head of a massive army of 80,000 to invade northern Wei. Additionally, he assigned the renowned generals Murong De and Murong Shao to lead another force of 18,000 infantry and cavalry as reinforcements, ensuring that Murong Bao's campaign against northern Wei would proceed without fail. Upon learning of the large-scale Yan army invasion, Tuoba Gui convened an emergency military meeting with his generals. Ultimately, he adopted the advice of his top strategist, Zhang Gun, to avoid a direct confrontation with the powerful Yan army, the dominant force in central China. Instead, they decided on a strategy of strategic relocation, luring the enemy deep into familiar northern Wei territory for a decisive battle on the vast grasslands and deserts. Tuoba Gui ordered the Wei military and civilians to evacuate from the capital Xinla and cross the Yellow River, retreating to a location over 1,000 li west of the river to evade the Yan army. The Yan army advanced unopposed, encountering no resistance from the Wei forces along the way. They smoothly marched to Wuyuan, where Murong Bao moved the army north of the Yellow River and began constructing ships and preparing tools for crossing the river. In September, Tuoba Gui assembled his forces on the southern bank of the Yellow River, facing off against the Yan army. Tensions ran high between the two sides, but no battle broke out. At the same time, Tuoba Gui secretly stationed troops along the road from Zhongshan, waiting for any messengers from Later Yan to pass by, so he could capture them one by one. When Murong Bao set out from Zhongshan, Murong Chui was already seriously ill. Murong Bao and the soldiers were increasingly worried about Murong Chui's health and the situation in the Later Yan central government. After several months without receiving any news about Murong Chui, Tuoba Gui took the captured Later Yan messengers to the riverbank and ordered them to shout across the river to Murong Bao, "Your father, Murong Chui, has died. Why haven't you returned earlier?" Upon hearing this, Murong Bao and his men were filled with anxiety and fear. The Later Yan soldiers were also shaken, and morale within the army began to falter. Murong Lin's subordinates, including the general Mu Yusong, believed that Murong Chui had indeed passed away and conspired to rebel, planning to crown Murong Lin as the new emperor of Later Yan. The plot was exposed, and Mu Yusong and his co-conspirators were executed by Murong Bao. This caused a rift between Murong Bao and Murong Lin, leading to mutual distrust. The soldiers lost their fighting spirit and lacked the will to continue the campaign. On October 25, Murong Bao suddenly ordered the burning of the warships and secretly withdrew his army under the cover of night, heading back to their homeland. The Northern Wei army, lacking ships, could not cross the Yellow River to pursue them. Thus, the war should have ended, but unforeseen events soon unfolded. On November 3, the weather on the grasslands suddenly changed, with a fierce northern wind blowing, causing the temperature to drop and the Yellow River to freeze quickly. Tuoba Gui was overjoyed and quickly selected over 20,000 elite cavalry, lightening their load and hastily pursuing the Yan army. The journey back to their homeland was long, and the weather in the northern deserts was cold and harsh. As the exhausted and demoralized Later Yan army reached Canhabai, dark clouds covered the sky. A monk named Ji Tanming felt a sense of unease and warned the commander, Murong Bao, that the unusual weather might signal a possible ambush by the Wei army. Murong Bao only laughed and did not respond, thinking that the Wei army had been left far behind. Ji Tanming repeatedly urged caution, but Murong Lin, growing impatient, said, "With your highness's divine might and our army's strength, we can easily dominate the desert. How could the northern Wei dare to pursue us from such a distance? Have this monk executed in public to dispel any concerns." Ji Tanming, tearfully and sorrowfully, said, "The Emperor Fu Jian of former Qin commanded a 1,000,000-strong army, yet suffered a great defeat in Huainan. This was because he relied on his numbers and underestimated the enemy, failing to respect the will of heaven." The senior general, Murong De, recognizing Ji Tanming's loyalty, advised Murong Bao to heed the monk's warning. Only then did Murong Bao order Murong Lin to take 30,000 cavalry and bring up the rear, just in case. However, Murong Lin did not believe Ji Tanming's words and, at the rear of the army, allowed the soldiers to roam freely for hunting, failing to make proper preparations for defense. On the evening of November 9, after continuous day and night marching, the Wei army finally discovered the Yan army camped by the river to the east of Canhabai. Tuoba Gue immediately devised a plan to launch a surprise attack on the Yan army. The soldiers remained quiet and moved stealthily, gradually closing in on the Yan camp. The next morning, at sunrise, the Yan soldiers were slowly emerging from their camp, preparing to march east. When they suddenly turned around, they saw the elite cavalry of the Wei army positioned on the mountaintop, looking down on their large camp. The Yan soldiers were struck with terror, and chaos immediately broke out. Tuoba Gue raised his hand, and 20,000 elite Wei cavalry surged down the mountain like a tidal wave. The Yan army panicked and fled into the water, where many were trampled or drowned, with casualties numbering in the tens of thousands. The lucky few who managed to escape faced another ambush from a separate Wei force that had been lying in wait. Between 40,000 to 50,000 Yan soldiers surrendered, while only a few thousand managed to escape. Murong Bao, Murong Nong, Murong Lin, and Murong De managed to survive by riding fast horses. A large number of civil and military officials were either captured or killed in battle, and the losses in weapons, armor, supplies, and other equipment were incalculable. The defeat at Canhabai was the most disastrous setback since Murong Chui had revived the Xianbei Murong Yan Dynasty.